Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. And although this will be airing on a Wellness Wednesday, we are talking together today on a Saturday morning. So I really appreciate this conversation today with our licensed mental health counselor, Thomas Young. Say hello to the audience.
Hello, audience. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday, Wednesday,
Happy Saturday, Wednesday.
good morning, good evening, whatever time it is that you might be listening or watching. I feel like one of the luckiest people in the world because I get to have conversations with therapists. Oh my God, during one of the most extreme times in our lives. Thomas and I were speaking before I hit record just about how, like, the generations that have come before us, this is not a complete surprise, but it
Yeah.
is the first time that we've lived through something like this. And it is certainly an anxiety high time. So,
Mhm.
Thomas, thank you for joining me. I would love for the audience to learn a little bit about you and
Sure.
how you came to be in practice on your own for the last few years, but you've been in the business for quite some time. And you're in my favorite place, St. Pete, which after our
Yeah.
interview today, my husband and I are
hmm
taking a bike ride in St. Pete. We're
Nice.
packing up the car and we're heading down to your hood.
There you go. Come to the hood. We love it.
So tell us a little bit about you, Thomas.
Well, let's see. I'm not from Florida.
Mhm.
I'm actually from a little town outside of Syracuse, New York, called Liverpool.
Mhm.
And I came to being a therapist. Um, I don't want to say it was a difficult route, but it was, certainly when you don't know the road that's in front of you, you're like, what's going to happen? But when you look back, you're like, oh, yeah, that's how it happened. I get it now. So I started in school, actually studying to be a medical doctor. And when I didn't like that, I went to a different part of who I am. And I studied for 5 years to be a Roman Catholic priest.
What?
Yes. If
Throw
you
that in the middle of the interview and not warn me. I love it. Tell
yeah,
me
if,
more.
if you if you look at the my professional letters behind my name, the first two letters are MA. Well, the MA is a master's degree in theology
Yeah.
from St. Mary's Seminary and University in Baltimore, Maryland.
Wow. Incredible.
Um, and when I decided not to become a priest,
So first you
I
decided not to be a doctor, and then you decided not to be a priest. Okay.
right. Then I decided not to be a priest, and then I said, "What am I going to do with my life?" And again, it was one of those situations where the career found me. I didn't find it. I never saw myself as a therapist. I never thought about being a therapist. And then while I was in the seminary, we had a retreat with a woman who happened to be the associate chair of the counseling department at what was then called Loyola College of Maryland. Now they have changed. I'm so old now, it's Loyola University of Maryland. Um, and I had contacted her and, you know, went and took a couple of master's level courses. And that was 1997. And here we are today.
Unbelievable. That's amazing. So, well, growing up in private Catholic school my whole
Yeah,
life, um,
me too.
I believe it.
Yeah, all male Catholic high school.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my brother went to Chaminade in Long Island, all male
Yep,
Catholic, and
yep.
now he's an atheist. Not
Yeah.
to, we don't need to go there. I'm just saying, I mean, that's the reality sometimes.
Right.
So excited to hear more about your story because I do think that the story of why people do what they love is really fascinating. So you get into therapy and you were like, this is going to be my life. So and it's been 20 years. So you obviously
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I always knew ever since I was little, and when I say little, like 5,
Mhm,
that I was here to help.
mhm, mhm,
Now, at 5, you don't know.
mhm.
So I wanted to be a doctor, and then I wanted to be a veterinarian, and then I wanted to be an oceanographer and work with dolphins, and then I went back to veterinarian. And then by the time I got to college, it was like, no, you're going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And as we all see how that worked out. So,
So tell me, so now we are, here in this Can I just call it a shit show? Um,
Something happening?
I knew I liked you from the moment we got on the Zoom. Yeah, is there like a pandemic? What is going on?
The
No.
pandemic is the whole world going to hell in a handbasket.
So the obvious, of course, we have been anxiously awaiting the election. So maybe by Wednesday, when this airs, Thomas, we'll know who the president of the United States is. That's a possibility.
That would be nice. Yeah.
That would be nice to know by
Yes.
then. And then, of course, I'm quite sure there is, all right, and we're back.
And we're back.
So back and we laughed. So I'm going to say what Thomas said, because I hit pause. No, I hit mute instead of hitting pause, and then I started cracking up, and then I said, I'm the anti on social media about everybody's drinking, and Thomas said we're either all going to end up in AA or Weight Watchers, and I said, well, I'm in both. It's true.
It's true. It's true.
It's true. So we have to laugh though, Thomas, right? Laughter
Yes.
is the best medicine.
Yes, and there's been a lot of things happening over the past 6 months that you just either roll your eyes or shake your head and go, really? That just happened. Oh, okay.
Really. And
Really?
we are crying and laughing more than ever. It's a nice
Yeah,
relief.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think that there have been moments of deep sorrow for a lot of people, and shocking moments,
Yeah.
and the coping mechanisms that we have all employed pretty much since birth, the major ones have been taken away from us.
Yeah.
Well, what would you do if you were in a bad mood? You'd call your friends, you'd go to their house, you'd go and have a drink, you'd have dinner, you'd go to the movies, you'd go to the theater, you'd go to the gym and work out for, 2 or 3 hours and just sweat it out. You'd go, you'd travel, you'd be like, I got to get out of this town. I need to, get away. Let's go away and get away somewhere. And unfortunately, that's not happening. And
Right.
for the safety of yourself and for the world, it can't be that right now. And one of the things that I say very often, well before the pandemic, but definitely have said more, is that you are not always going to feel this way. This is not a permanent state.
Right.
It's very long. It's probably the longest you've ever felt.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you that one. Is it hard to deal with? Yes. Existential anxiety and existential depression are difficult to wrap your head around.
Mm.
Situational depression, something, happens directly to you. You can wrap your head around that. A loved one passed away. I lost my job. It's something concrete that you can focus on. But existential depression and existential anxiety, it's just kind of floating out there in the ether.
Yeah.
And it's like this pall that is just draped over the world. And it's not just me. It's not just my family. It's everybody.
The world.
It's the world.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think I can say that I don't think we as a country have felt this bad since 9/11.
Yeah.
9/11 was probably the last time. But even with 9/11, it was something we could wrap our heads around. Something bad.
Born together,
Right.
I mean, I was thinking about that day of 9/11, that we could at least hug each other
Exactly.
and cry together and be with each other.
Yep.
And there was this real sense of unity. That's another big difference. There was a huge,
Yes.
I mean, one thing that is a huge difference is we couldn't love first responders more. And that's not to say that that's not the same now, but there's obviously been divide we don't even need to talk about. But there's obviously been such tremendous divide in this country. And
Mhm.
so everything, although familiar to maybe generations before, very unfamiliar in the sense that we can't hold each other through this. So
Mhm.
And then let's talk about the silver lining, right? Which is my favorite. The silver lining through the pandemic. I'm getting to have this conversation with you today. I've never met you before. I feel like I knew you the moment we started talking. The fact that we've been able to have technology give us at least,
Mhm.
I've been very open and honest about my own recovery. And Saturday mornings, I host a meeting, and then I go to one in New York, and it's all about spirituality. And I feel
Mhm.
like I can float after those two. So through all of this pain that we're going through, there's tremendous relief, and I know how busy you are because we're doing this on a Saturday morning. The
Right.
overall feel, I'm sure, of your clients, which obviously you can't say the specifics, but I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of anxiety.
There's a great amount of anxiety because it's the uncertainty, and it's the uncertainty of this virus. It's the uncertainty of the election. It's the uncertainty of the reaction to the election.
Yeah.
I think that uh, I think that people's imaginations of what may or may not happen on both sides have started a dance with their own anxiety, and they're all dancing in a very dangerous direction.
Yeah.
And I think as therapists, our responsibility is going to be, okay, let's do a reality check. Let's breathe. What's going on in your reality right now?
Yeah.
You live in St. Petersburg, Florida. The sun is shining. The
Oh,
birds are singing. Mayor Kreisman runs the town. You
God.
know,
Whew.
the pier is open. The ferry is running.
Yeah.
You can still sit outside, unlike, where we grew up, where you cannot sit
Yes.
outside anymore. I
Right,
mean,
exactly.
it's for people who don't know, it snowed in New England the day before Halloween. So it's the idea that we still have here in our little burg opportunities, to remain calm and sit back and see how all of these issues play themselves out. The virus, I think people have been hammered to death with what to do about the virus, washing your hands, wearing a mask. I think for a lot of people, if they hear it one more time, they're going to scream. And it's like, yeah, okay, but do it.
Right.
And again, this isn't forever. This is temporary.
Yeah. It's a very hard concept, I feel, for a lot of people to grasp.
Hmm.
They maybe haven't experienced the tremendous adversity, which can be life.
Hmm.
When you are able to see things pass, I'm just going to equate it real quick for a moment to my depression. I was thinking about this morning. When I was in my deepest, darkest moments in my life, when I wanted to leave this earth when I was 21 years old, I never saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I only saw darkness.
Hmm.
There was no way out of that in my mind until I got the proper help from my therapist, and my community in recovery. But today, I mean, that was 25 years ago.
Hmm.
To think that, but that moment in time was so real, right? So everybody that's
Absolutely.
having that moment in time right now, when somebody says it will pass, it's so hard to believe because you're in it, and it just doesn't feel like there's any hope. So let's talk about some of the things that first I want to ask what you do as a
Okay.
as a human
Yeah.
to heal, because I find it so important and vital to have this conversation about healers healing themselves. What do you do? And then what do you recommend to some of your patients that are going through that moment in time where they just feel like it's not going to pass?
Hmm. What do I do? I try and work out whenever I can, although I have gained the quarantine 15, so I'm trying to lose
Yeah,
that.
I'm at quarantine 19. Okay. Good for you.
Um, I uh, I love to cook. I love to bake. Love to read.
Mhm.
Love to be with my family. I will have to say that I own two of the goofiest dogs
Yes.
this side of the moon. We have a 4-year-old black miniature schnauzer named Pete and a 2.5-year-old Welsh Terrier named Murphy.
I love it.
And Pete and Murphy, they are just big bundles of unconditional love. And, I think when I come home, they are right there at the door to greet me. And it's just this feeling of, there's other stuff going on right here in front of you. You're being loved.
Mhm.
I think that I also, do a lot of deep breathing. I meditate.
Mhm.
Um, I talk to my friends and family when I can.
Mhm.
Um, and to be honest, work is very therapeutic for me.
I bet.
I think that every therapist, when you have that patient, and I'm really blessed that I have some wonderful patients who, it seems just when I need it the most, of course, they don't know it, but I know it, they'll turn around and look and say, thanks so much. This was a really great session. I feel so much better. I feel so much lighter. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I did something good today. Well,
Yeah.
that's good. In terms of my patients, in helping them through their anxiety and depression, so this is a long list.
I like it. I like a long list. Good.
So of course it depends on what stage of therapy they're in. How long do I know you?
Mhm.
If it's a brand new patient and they are presenting with depression and anxiety, the first thing that I tell them is that yes, while I will continue to see you and talk to you, you need a full medical exam because there are medical issues that absolutely, shows, can look like depression and anxiety.
Sure.
Most specifically, hypothyroidism in men, low testosterone. There are other things going on, and especially if you're over the age of 40, one of the homework assignments I'm going to give is I need you to see a medical doctor and get your blood work done, just so we know that we are addressing the right problem. I don't want to start saying, oh, you need an antidepressant. Oh, you need to be, on an anti-anxiety medication when you don't. What you need is you need synthetic thyroid. What you need is, hormone replacement therapy.
So important. I'm so glad you're saying this. That's great.
The
Okay.
medical part is really important. Second thing I always evaluate for people, and this I firmly believe is a bedrock of good mental health, is how many hours of sleep are you getting per night? Sleep is the most important part for every single person's mental health. And for an adult between the ages of, let's just say, 22 and 70,
Mhm.
which is usually the majority of most of our patients,
Mhm.
7 to 9 hours of sleep per night.
Right.
And one of the big things that I have to train my patients on is that you must turn off all electronics 30 to 45 minutes before going to bed. Because
Oh, can you wait? Let's take a deep breath into that one. I mean, holy God, everybody. Let's try to really take this in for a second because I have a rule for myself, and I only learned this listening to Jay Shetty's podcast. Okay. So, Jay Shetty, who I highly recommend if you haven't heard of him to take a listen, he was the one who talked about he had had such an addiction and a problem with his own phone. He used to lock his phone in his glove compartment in his car. So
mm-hmm,
so he wouldn't go get it.
right.
And now it's just, a pattern where the first thing that I do in the morning is to exercise and then meditate. I don't, and then have coffee. Like I don't look at it until I've done all of the right mental health workout, is what I
Mm-hmm.
call it. And the same, I can't say I'm doing a great job at night though, but I needed to hear you say that today, that before I go to bed, because I'm on TikTok like nobody's business.
The
Like,
light, the light that is emitted from computers, flat screen TVs, iPads, cell phones, hits the back of our retina and wakes us up.
yeah.
So, the to the best of my knowledge, the only handheld electronic that is not backlit that you can actually use almost right until you go to bed is a Kindle. Kindles,
Really?
Kindles are not backlit.
Okay, good to know.
So that's one of the few electronics that you can lay in bed and read a book and not worry about it.
Mm.
But you want to make sure that you're turning off the electronics. You want to make sure you're in a comfortable bed. If you're sacking money away and saying, "Gee, how can I improve the house?" Buy a fantastic mattress. As
Mm.
an adult, you are supposed to stay in bed for 1/3 of your life. This is more important than your car. This is more important than your couch.
Mhm. I
You
can honestly say I've done over 100 interviews and nobody has brought up the importance of sleep. So I
sleep
really want
is if you expect to be a mentally healthy person,
to.
you have to get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. Now, it can be interrupted one or two times, especially for all of us for the age of 40 who may have to go use the facilities at some point during the night.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that after you're done, you climb back into bed and you're asleep within 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah. So
Um,
interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up. I
well, if you don't get enough sleep, if
Mhm.
you get less than 7 hours of sleep, the neuroreceptors in your brain become less sensitive to neurotransmitters. And
Mhm.
when that happens, you will have an increase in depression and anxiety.
So is that one
I
of the
mean,
questions that you ask patients? Are you asking them about their sleep in the,
absolutely.
initial
It's part of
evaluation?
the intake.
Oh, that's great.
It's yeah, it's part of the intake, and it's right then and there that if they say, "Oh, I get about 5 hours of sleep per night," I'm like, "Mm-mm."
Mm.
And right then and there, sometimes we find that they are having some serious sleep disturbance,
Yeah.
sometimes associated with depression and anxiety. It's kind of a way for therapists to get in and talk about depression and anxiety
Sure.
without mentioning things like antidepressants.
Right.
And we're like, okay, well, let's try and get that under control. And if you're really having problems falling asleep, talk to your primary care physician and, start with a discussion on melatonin, which is, homeopathic and very safe. And you literally can buy it practically anywhere.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, go back to your physician and say, hey, the melatonin didn't work. What are some of my other options?
Mm. Yeah. That's great.
Because we know that things like racing thoughts
Mm.
are a product of anxiety, and
Yeah.
that people who suffer from generalized anxiety disorder, especially, will say, "Oh, I am so tired. I am going to bed," and they will tell me that their head hits the pillow, and the racing thoughts and the ruminating thoughts start immediately.
Mm.
So sleep becomes this very large part of what do I need to have, to be a mentally, have good mental health and be a mentally healthy person. You have to go to sleep.
Well, yes. I want to share this because I love being so transparent. I don't have a problem sleeping. I never have. Because I get up at 5 and you can barely keep me awake after 9:45. If we're watching a movie on the couch, it ain't happening. Sharon's going to sleep. My husband loves watching television with me at night because I fall asleep. But I have, since the pandemic began, I took up snoring. Isn't that great?
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. He's real thrilled about it. And
uh-huh.
yeah, and I've always self-diagnosed myself, because I work in the medical field. I'm not a doctor, but
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
around it
of
enough.
course.
So obviously I know better than everybody else. It's
Yep.
just because of the few extra pounds that I've gained.
Could
Um,
be.
it could be, but Thomas, because of you today, I'm gonna go to the doctor. I'm going to I talk to my doctors about it, but I get the advice that I want to hear. Ever do that?
Oh yeah.
Some 6 or 7 people giving me different advice, and then I just create my own. So I'm going to go have myself checked out because I haven't even myself, but it is so important. Like, I get a quality 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah.
Even getting up as early as 5 a.m. because I need it. And since the pandemic started, dare I say I've slept better, because as an introvert, there's been this wonderful removal of the pressure of having to be around people. This is
Hmm.
another self-diagnosis, by the way, Thomas. No, I don't need to talk to anybody. This is all what I'm creating.
You've got it. You've done it. Now
Yeah.
if you get your medical license, you can just, get it yourself.
Right.
Go to
No,
medical school.
right. The doctor whisperer turned into the doctor. God help everybody if that were the case. But I really do appreciate you talking about sleeping because it's not spoken about enough, nor is the removal of digital. And I own a social media company. So, but I believe in it the most. I believe in getting away from screen time. I believe in getting out in nature. I believe in everything that you're sharing about, but more so, I think, even before I go to bed. Although I don't have a problem sleeping, I know it's not even good for my eyes. I know better.
And just to very quickly touch upon, you said you had a problem with snoring.
Hmm?
Snoring can obviously disrupt your sleep. It can be a sign of a breathing issue. It's certainly, at least what I have been told, that my snoring used to cause problems with other people sleeping.
Yes.
And so what you want to do is, again, while you're at your primary care physician, have them evaluate you for a deviated septum.
Mhm.
Again, before we start doing sleep tests and sleep apnea, let's
Mhm.
just go for, an issue that causes snoring, that is fixed very easily with an outpatient surgery. I had it done, and it was the best decision I ever
Can you
made.
stop snoring?
I stopped snoring.
Okay, well, thank God my husband isn't here. He'd have me signed up right now. Yes, I think that that is great advice, which I'm going to follow. Because I ordered from Amazon Prime, just this thing you stick.
That's the thing that got,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I have 9 of them next to my bed because in the middle of the night I throw them out. So yeah, I've slept in my stepson's room. Oh, this is wonderful. I'm just putting out all of our dirty laundry here, but that's what I do. Because I know I'm not alone. We're not alone, but this
Oh,
is so important.
not even close.
Yeah. So what else besides sleep? I think you must be an advocate for nature. You're living in the greatest city in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting outside, taking a walk, taking a run, bicycle riding, take your dog for a walk, um,
I don't think people
anything that is,
recommend that enough, Thomas. I don't think enough people recommend the value of having an animal.
well, that's a show unto itself,
Good. We're going to save
because,
that for the next one. We are.
yeah,
I want a
yeah,
part
because,
two.
I've had animals my entire life,
Mhm.
and animals make you responsible for something other than yourself. You
Mhm.
can't be selfish
Yeah.
and have an animal. If you didn't naturally have it, an animal will help you create a nurturing part of your soul.
Totally. Totally.
And I've, prior to the pandemic, and probably in the past month or so, when people come to me and say, "Oh, I'm having so much difficulty, meeting people and talking to people," and and I said, "Go
Get
to
it.
the dog park. Go to the dog park, because the single man or the single woman that is playing with their dog, that person would give their left kidney
Yes.
for their dog. And
Yes.
if they would do that for their dog,
Yes.
if he or she fell in love with you, imagine what they would give for you."
It's so true. And I want to mention, because you're going to love this, I have a dear friend, Sarah Connolly, who's a healthcare attorney, and her
Mhm.
and her husband go to the dog bar. They don't have a
Yes,
dog.
dog park.
Yeah, but they don't have a dog. And they go, and she put this out on social, and they pretend they have a dog
Mhm.
because they're preparing to,
Mhm.
maybe have a family and maybe have a dog, and all of the
They're
love.
test driving other people's dogs. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, they are, and they are not
Yeah.
ashamed to admit it, that they're going
No.
there and pretending the dog over there that nobody's paying attention to is theirs.
Yeah. And dogs are these wonderful sources of unconditional love.
Yeah.
And for the most part, once they've got a little bit of energy out, they all turn into throw pillows. I come into the house every day and I look at our schnauzer and I'm like, "Thank you for making sure that the couch did not float away. I appreciate it. The couch is still where it's supposed to be. Thank you so much for keeping it there."
Well, my Charlie Brown chocolate lab is laying down right next to me, as he does through every interview. He's getting quite restless, irritable, and discontent, which maybe some of our listeners are, as the attention span of the human today is about that of a flea. So, and it's hopefully
Exactly.
not on our dog, right?
Hopefully not on a dog.
So what I would love to do, Thomas, if you'd agree, is to do a part two, because I do think there's so much more that we can
Sure.
talk about. And I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. All of your information of how to reach you and how to understand about how you two can learn about the dog being a help, going to the doctor, getting enough sleep, turning off the cell phones. You're a wonderful resource of information for everybody that might be struggling today. We are with you, right?
Absolutely. We are here to help as many people as we can. I will say that, most of us are really busy. I can only encourage you to, when you find a therapist that you think you'd like to be able to connect with, just get on their schedule, and it may be a week out, it might be a month out. Get on their schedule. Why? Because as soon as you get on our schedule, we're going to want to see you every week.
Yeah.
We're going to want to make sure that we get you in.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make, because every therapist that I've talked to, it really is, you are the busiest you've probably ever been.
Yes.
I'm sure you are busy, but more so than ever. And I agree with you. I think that for me, it took, I don't know, 2 or 3 different counselors. My parents thought that Polly on Park Avenue, because she was fancy, was going to be the one that helped me when I was in my late teens, and it turned out to be my dad's EAP counselor.
Hmm.
There is somebody for everybody,
There is.
and you have to really connect with somebody, and it's worth waiting for. There are a tremendous amount of other resources in the meantime. I always throw out information about NAMI, the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay, Celebrate Recovery, 12-step
Mhm.
recovery. But I agree with you. I think that if there's somebody that you feel like you really connect with, that make that appointment. It's worth the wait. In the meantime, there are other free resources out there. And Great point. A lot of great points today, Thomas.
And
You,
and don't be afraid to, as a patient, to doctor shop. You
yeah,
know, go to a couple of appointments. If the connection's not there, if you're not feeling it, you're not going to offend us. We
true
as
that.
as as therapists, we have experienced this dozens of times that for whatever reason, you thought you wanted a male counselor, you thought you wanted a female counselor, you went to them, you didn't feel it. Okay,
Right.
you
No,
know,
not going to take it personally.
we are not going to take it personally. We have never taken it personally.
Right.
The most important thing is that you are getting the help that you so richly need and so richly deserve. What
Yeah.
is going on in this world is not your fault, yet you are going to be a victim of it, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So let us as a profession help you and guide you, and
And
get you
don't
to a,
wait, right?
yeah,
Don't wait until there's
don't wait.
an
No,
extreme problem and you can't even breathe anymore. Preventative therapy, I am a huge fan of. I am wanting myself now. The thing that I say to people is like, you're not in therapy?
well, I've told people before that, therapists are kind of like dentists. Everybody needs one and nobody wants to go. So, but
Very
once you get there, you realize the benefits of being there.
right. And on both sides, once that smile comes back,
Once
it's
the
worth
smile comes
every
back,
yes,
you're a happier person.
yeah, I love it. Well, I couldn't be happier to have spoken to you today, and I look forward to part two.
Absolutely.
We've recorded that, so you can't go back. So I'm
I
just gonna.
can't go back. I have to show up again.
You have to, especially because of you were going to be a priest one day. So
I was that. That's several sessions.
thank you, Thomas.
You're welcome. Have a great Saturday.
You too. So don't forget, if you mention that you have seen the show or listened to the podcast, Thai Technology, 3 months for free.